and what looked like a gel-based monitor screen, based in its stomach region. The creature was just as tall as Tails, if not slightly shorter, and looked up at the cub with deep brown eyes. Ayo, it giggled. She, as the voice might have implied. Hi, Tails replied with a slight voice. Who you? The little creature asked, entranced by the new being. I am Tails, the fox cub said, a grin fighting its way onto his face. While odd-looking, this creature didn't seem to bear any malice. In fact, it seemed incapable of it. The Tails, it had an aura of toddlerness about it. Who are you? He asked. I'm Poe. No. I'm Poe. The little fuzzy thing replied with a giggle. Tails smiled and landed. Is it this your zone? He asked. Zone? What's that? Poe asked, a look of mystified curiosity overtaking her face. Here, is this your home? Uh-huh, Poe replied, noddingly. Oh, Kung Fu Panda. Cool, Tails said, grinning. Cool, Poe echoed enthusiastically, immediately loving the word. She hopped around the grassy area, chanting her new word contentedly. Tails laughed at the childishness, but felt rather warmed by the innocence. After a moment of this, Poe looked at Tails expectantly. Hung Wei? She asked. Tails grinned. Well, now that you mention it, I'm kinda hungry. Go eat, Poe called. Ride my pooter, she said softly, but excitedly, and ran behind the pinwheel's base. Pooter? Asked Tails in a rather disgusting image forming in his mind. Poe wheeled out a small scooter, which she mounted with obvious pride. My pooter, she proclaimed. Oh, Scooter! Tails laughed, breathing a sigh of relief. Go eat, Poe offered. Sure, lead the way, Tails said. Poe turned to her favorite plaything and began to scoot toward the dome in the center of the zone. All the while, amongst the squeaking of the wheels, she chanted, Ride it! Ride it! Tails flew right along behind her. They reached the base of the basin and the dome, where Tails discovered a huge set of metal doors. Upon Poe's approach, they hissed open, letting her in. Tails quickly followed. On the opposite side of the dome, Rotor and Sally descended the gentle slop into the basin. They approached the grassy mound, noticing the first time the windows and doors. Whoa, Rotor said in surprise. The features hadn't been visible from where the group had entered the zone. Are you sure this isn't the place? Anyone else living here besides the plants? Sally asked. Nishol, Rotor asked. Affirmative. Sally grunted, calculating. Well, let's see what's inside here. While we're here. The duo approached the doors, which hissed open readily. The interior of the dome was astounding. At its center was a column covered in high-tech consoles, lights, compartments, along with many other things. From therein, they saw 4 tiny beds jutting from one of the circular walls, as well as what appeared to be the end of a slide that curled around the column to a hole in the zenith of the dome. From the other side, they heard a soft voice proclaim happily, Tubby Toast! The princess and Handyman exchanged looks. Tubby Toast! They asked each other quietly. Nishol Rotor asked. The compute stalled. Sorry. Sorry. There is definitely at least one other living thing in here, and you couldn't detect it, Sally hissed quietly. Sally's being a bitch in this thing. I don't know why, Nicole beeped. Whatever it is, just don't register. It just doesn't. It just doesn't register. Sorry. Rotor closed in his shoal and handed her to Sally, who promptly attached it to her boot. Well, might as well see if it's friendly, Sally sighed. Rotor nodded his support, and the two began to edge their way around the column. Never noticing the two forms coming down the slide, the duo slipped around the brightly lit controls to spy a familiar individual seated at a low-sitting round table. "Tails!" they exclaimed. "Boo!" cried two childish voices from behind the duo. With a scream, Sally and Rotor jumped 3 meters between the column and the table, whirling around in the process. Rotor, not being as nimble as the princess, went careening into the table. Tails looked up, equally surprised by both the surprises. Sally painted and looked at the spooks. 2 more creatures of Poe's type began to giggle hysterically. One was as tall as Rotor, green in color, and had one more of a brown coloring to his face and hands. From his head came a regular rod-like antenna. The other, tallest of the 3, was a bluish purple and had a triangular antenna. His face and hands were pale like Poe's. "Ayo, Dipsy! Ayo, Tinky Winky!" Poe greeted casually, rolling in what looked like an oversized pop-up toaster. I hate this. "Ayo, Poe!" the other 2 greeted. Still snickering good-natured, Sally, despite her frazzled nature, couldn't help but grin. Yes, she had been scared silly, but it was apparent they meant no harm, and their laughter was contagious. Hi, Aunt Sally," Tails said. Why didn't you say that earlier? With an embarrassed wave, and Rotor, he added, with a snicker. When he looked at the purple mass on the table. "Tails, I told you to inspect that tower," Sally said, straightening her vest and face. "I did, there's nothing to it. Then I found Poe. She invited me to lunch." "Poe?" Rotor asked. "I'm Poe," the little red Teletubby confirmed softly. "I'm Dipsy," the green one drawled. "I'm Tinky Winky," the purple one added in a goofy voice. "What doin'?" Dipsy asked Poe. "Tubby toast," she sang. Tinky Winky and Dipsy exchanged elated looks. "Tubby toast," they cried happily and rushed around the table. Sally helped Rotor to his feet. Then the 2 joined the Teletubbies at the table. "Are they nice?" Sally asked. "You're asking me," Tails asked, elated to the authority on a matter this time around. "You know one of them by name," Rotor pointed out. "Makes you the logical candidate to ask." Tails beamed. "Well, they all seem to act like a bunch of kids." He caught the grins Sally and Rotor exchanged. "Little kids," Tails added hastily. "Tubby toast, Tubby toast," Tinky Winky and Dipsy chanted, bouncing in their seats. Everyone was both surprised and entertained by the fact that the Teletubbies made bicycle horn sounds when they landed on their bottoms. Poe stood posed to press the large red button on the Tubby toaster dispenser. She then suddenly and began to contemplate. When she paused suddenly and began to contemplate something, she looked up at the group at the table. "Where Lala?" she asked. "Where Lala?" the other 2 echoed. Looking at the Moby, and Sally couldn't help but giggle. "I think I have a good idea," she said. Sonic heard the soft footsteps of someone approaching. He sighed quietly to himself, disappointed he would have to get out of his comfortable position soon. He had just begun to really nap. Whoever it was had returned. "How mondo boring was this place, Sal?" he said. The footsteps stopped for a moment with a giggle and began. And again, Sonic mentally blinked in confusion. Then he chuckled. "Sorry, little bro, anything interesting you about that overgrown pinwheel?" he asked about the good-naturedly. There's a The person approaching him only giggled again. Their shadow fell over Sonic, and the Hedgehog immediately became wary. If it had been one of his friends, their shadow would have fallen on him. From his feet, he could tell it was coming down from above his head. Rotor, Sonic asked desperately. He opened his eyes to find some kind of tanned monkey face staring down at him with deep brown eye and a curly Q antenna, the same yellow color as the rest of the short fuzzy fur. Boo, she screamed. Yeah! Sonic screamed back. While the yellow Teletubby giggled with glee, Sonic blasted away and into the dome, faster than he could possibly imagine, and sat with the other freedom fighters, painting more out of nerves than exertion. Problem, Sonic? Sally asked, giggling. Yeah, I saw this, he began, then caught a sight of Tinky Winky and Dipsy. Ayo! The chorused. Sonic laid his head on the table with the sight. And what have I gotten myself into this time? He asked out loud. Lunch, Tails yipped. Sonic shot the group a questioning look, but no one seemed opposed to the idea. The doors hissed open as Lala, still giggling over Sonic's reaction, entered and took a seat next to the Hedgehog. Ayo. Ayo, she laughed. Hi, Sonic replied, waving weakly. Lala proceeded to greet her fellow Teletubbies individually and by name. Each one, in turn, replied in a similar fashion. It was tedious, to say the least. Dipsy hopped into his seat, honking. Po gonna get the tubby toast. Po gonna get the tubby toast, she announced happily. Tubby toast, Lala exclaimed, excitedly looking for confirmation. Tubby toast, Tinky Winky assured. Sonic looked among his companions, finding it odd that the entire scene was perceived as entertaining to them, rather than annoying as he felt. Without further ado, Po punched in the larger red button and hurried over the others, taking her seat. A vertical row of lights hummed to life, starting from the bottom and finally reaching the top. The Teletubbies leaned forward expectantly, only to groan in dismay as the lights died away, no toast of any form appearing without any hesitation. Rotor stood and went to inspect the machine. Can't you tell what's wrong, Rotor? Sally asked. I can't find any kind of access panel anywhere on this thing. It's far more high-tech than anything we've come across before. How can these guys operate that kind of technology? Sonic grunted. Be nice, Sally cautioned. Yeah, they're nice, Taily informed his idol. Press the button, Lala suggested. Press it again, Po demanded softly. Rudder shrugged and pushed the large button. He briskly returned to his seat, figuring that since Po had done the same, it was vital to the machine's working properly. The lights flashed, the machine groaned, but nothing else happened. Sonic stood with a snort, and punched the button. The lights activated up the third, then died off again. Muttering, Sonic delivered a swift kick to the device. Immediately the lights blazed and smoke began to pour from the slit in the gadget's top. Sonic flipped back to his seat, eyes wide with guilt. Before Sally could reprimand him, the Teletubbies announced the plan of action. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, they chorused. Run away. The freedom fighters looked among each other in an alarmed manner, but no one reacted in time. With a screech, the machine began to fire flat pancakes like pieces of toast. In the crust, a smiley face was mysteriously etched, piece after piece, by the thousands. Everyone began to dive for cover. Sonic managed to find a hiding spot behind an odd blue machine of some sort. As the tubby toast went flying across the room, Sonic heard a sound. He looked at the front of his hiding place, and it looked back. Sonic squeaked and spun away. The little blue machine looked quizzically at the hedgehog, then turned its attention to the flying tubby toast. I really want this to be done with. Sonic spun behind one of the dome's bulkheads and joined his fellow freedom fighters. They all looked on curiously as the Teletubbies scampered around the dome, giggling in glee as they were pelted with tubby toast. After a few minutes, the torrent of toast died away and the freedom fighters emerged from their hiding spot. As they waded through the ankle-deep mounds of bread, Sonic stopped and looked about. Tubby toast, he observed with a grin. For whatever reason, his words struck a funny chord with the rest of the group, and the entire dome was filled with laughter. Tails brushed toast off Sonic's former hiding spot and was repaid with quick vacuuming from its trunk. Tails yelped and flew back a few feet. No, no, the Tubbies called happily. They comically fumbled their way through the toast to reach the sentient vacuum. Big hug, they chorused again, embracing each other and the new. The feeling was infectious, and Sonic suddenly found himself with an arm around Sally and a hand playfully ruffling Tails' hair. For a day that started out so rotten, it certainly had taken a happy upswing. After the short love fest... What? Sally spoke up. What do we know? She asked with a grin. Tubby Toast, Rotor laughed, diving deftly into the mounds of bread. The group laughed with him and began to eat.